Welcome to T. Lokes, Tucson's local business podcast. I'm your host, L. Connor McEverly, and in each episode, we embark on a journey to connect with the passionate minds behind the businesses and nonprofits that make our community thrive. Join me as I sit down with the owners, visionaries, and change makers who pour their hearts into shaping the local landscape. We explore the challenges, triumphs, and unique journeys that define Tucson's business community. From the corner coffee shop to the innovative startups and impactful nonprofits, T. Lokes is your window into the diverse stories that make our city special. Tune in and get ready to get connected. This is T. Lokes. Howdy, folks, and welcome to T. Lokes, your local Tucson business podcast. I'm your host, L. Connor McEverly, and here with me in the studio today is the founder and owner of Photography by Jacquelynn, a prolific photography service that seeks to capture the precious moments of your life perfectly. It is my pleasure to introduce to the show Jacquelynn Buck. Jacquelynn, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, well, I love what you're doing here. I think it's totally worth supporting.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, hey, let's jump right in and let's talk about your business, right?
Sounds great, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Photography by Jacquelynn. What's your mission and what set you on it?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of work, I would say probably 10 years ago, on finding your why. And I used a little bit of the research that I did. I can't remember the guy's name who did the book. It'll come to me. But It was important to me to understand the why behind what I do. I fell into photography very sideways. I have a master's degree in public health. I was working in public health. I was in a small town in North Carolina with my then husband, and he was in the Air Force, and I didn't know a soul. And so I wanted to figure out how to meet people. And so a friend of mine suggested I read the newspaper and look for like things to do, which we got newspapers still back then. That was 20 years ago. Right. And I found a photography club, and I joined the photography club just to meet people. I had no idea that it would change my life. And it really did. It was one of those things where looking back, I can see the steps unfolding the way that they did. But looking from that point back forward, I would never have been able to see what ended up happening would become my life and my joy, you know?
Right.
So I think when I look back at that, I think, okay, what happened was meant to be. I really do believe that. But then I had to sort of reconnect to the why behind, because when I started doing public health, I had a biology degree, an undergraduate degree that I felt a little bit forced into. My mom was like, you're so smart, be a doctor. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then, halfway through, I was like, I hate this. I hate organic chemistry. I hate blood. I was like, I don't want to do anything medical. So I was like, what can I do to still help people, but doesn't involve, sick people, really is what it came down to. And someone mentioned public health, and I followed that trajectory and got the degree in health education and behavior, health promotion, education and behavior. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to help change the world. I'm going to help people. That was ultimately what I wanted to do. When photography kind of entered my life and my soul and really became what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, I felt a little at sea about how does this tick my need to help people? Because I really did, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to help people. That was really what was my driving purpose. Right. And I'm like, well, how do I justify this complete career change, wasted quote unquote degrees, and now I'm going to take pictures of people? How am I going to change the world that way? Unless I'm a photojournalist, which I didn't want to be. Right. So I had to really do a little bit of work on that, and have done in the many since years, thinking about what is my why? Why do I do what I do? And I think for me, what it comes down to is legacy. So my mom died when I was 25, and that was 21 years ago, which is crazy to me because some days it feels fresh and some days it feels like it was 21 years ago. Right. And my youngest sibling is 14 years younger than I am. And so there was a big gap between us. But in a lot of ways, we're sisters, we're best friends. We're also kind of a little parent, mom, daughter, because I did help kind of raise her. Yeah. And the number one question that she and her brother, who's a year older than her, ask is, why aren't there any pictures of me and mom? Where are the pictures of me and mom? We just celebrated my sister's 30th birthday, and they put a photo board together of her. There were 3 pictures of her with my mom. Wow. And it was just really hard to imagine that she has no physical memory beyond when she was 9, when my mom died, of that time. And I know that we're in a digital age now and we have phones and we take a zillion pictures of everything.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to say, oh, sure, we have pictures. But one of the things that I have found is that most often the people behind the camera is mom. So when she's taking all those pictures, she's never in them. Right. So even today in our digital world, you know, oftentimes the pictures are of the people in the family that mom is taking, not with mom, right?
Yeah.
And even if we have a few of them, they're usually like snaps, selfies, you know, like vacation pictures, everyone's wearing their sunglasses, you know, stuff like that, which are still great memories.
Totally.
But they're not those like moments that I think are as precious as when you planfully schedule time to celebrate kind of your family or your children or your, you know, special occasions, things like that.
Totally.
So I guess for me, it's like, what legacy are you leaving for your children? Like, what will you leave behind that they can pass on to their children that show in a way that you existed, you know, that you were part of this journey that raised them. And to not have anyone, you know, be like my sister, where it's like, where are pictures of me and mom? Like, how come I don't have any of those? Yeah. And so that sort of, I think, drives me to understand that photography and to believe that photography is important. Like, it's not, yes, it's a luxury for a lot of people, but I would argue in some ways it's also like a necessity to have that picture that takes you back to that moment, that takes you back to like that time. I mean, you're only a newborn once. You're only a high school senior once, generally speaking, right? Like you only really have those once in a lifetime things. Right. So why not invest in a professional photographer to capture those in a way where you can show that you were at your best and, you know, have that to pass on to your children?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, like I've had some photos taken professionally and it's so worth it. I mean, the outcome is, you know, not to say like, you know, the pictures that we take on our vacations aren't great, but yeah, when you get like a good photographer who really does show like the best of you with like the lighting just right, the background just right, it absolutely just creates like a stronger memory. And it also feels really good to see yourself like portrayed in that way. Yeah. And I guess is a bit of a tangent, but like I can totally resonate with doing something different than what you studied. Like I was a plant scientist.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like I studied aquaponics, hydroponics, controlled environment, agriculture stuff. But I started college as a theater arts major, right? Okay. And I was like, well, I'm, you know, one, it's a very like nighttime oriented thing, and I'm so solar powered. It's pretty bad. Like sun goes down, I want to be inside. That's just me though. Okay. But you know, after, you know, working in the plant field for so long, like I just kind of got back in touch with my like performative roots and finding that why as well. And so that's so powerful for sure. And I feel like I've seen on your website or on your social medias that like you want to be someone's photographer for life, you know, and I can totally see that. I mean, looking through your website and like all of your offerings, I mean, you offer so many different kinds of services, right? Family, maternity, newborn, high school seniors, engagements, wedding, boudoir, more. Like, so you really are capturing so many different like elements of someone's life. And definitely your services absolutely reflect that, like capturing the span of someone's time on this planet. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. And that actually is really, I think, you know, there used to be a phrase that, I don't know, my grandmother used to say, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. And I think to myself, like, absolutely not. Like my journey, my photography is the antithesis of that, because really and truly, I believe there are components to good photography that really carry through any kind of photography session. Right. I mean, when you really break it down, a wedding in a lot of ways is like several mini portrait sessions, right? You've got the little engagement type photos of the couple together. You've got the big family gathering groups. That's like the family session. Yeah. You've got the event, which is like the dancing and the, you know, so you have a lot of components that make up a wedding that are similar when you break it down for like individual sessions. Totally. And then really for me, the through line is the lighting and the posing.
Hey, Tucson friends. Are you or someone you know a local Tucson business owner who's looking to expand their visibility, grow their brand, and engage more with their community? Well, I want to talk to you. Don't just be a listener. Come on the show and interview. Showcase your business. Tell us all about your story. Tell about the highs, the lows, and how you serve the Tucson community. We would love to hear what you have to say and hear the intricacies of your business. Humanize your brand, position yourself as a thought leader, and get in front of more eyes and ears. Click the link below and star on an episode. I look forward to talking with you. Now back to the show.
When I started really convincing myself and others that photography was like the end all be all for what I wanted to do, I said there's got to be a way to like understand lighting better and posing better, because that really to me is the heartbeat of photography. It's not necessarily, I don't know. It's like there are definitely different genres of photography. There are people that do natural light, and there are people that do just off-camera light, and then there are people that, you know, do both like me. And that to me, it was kind of a crucial element. Like I wanted to master lighting and I wanted to master posing, because I felt like those two things really would help me succeed in any level of photography. And of course there are differences. You know, newborns are very specialized, but I know how to work with newborns. I know how the tips and tricks to keep them sleepy and make sure they're all like cuddly and they're not going to like flail and scream. And, you know, so that's definitely a different element that is maybe unique in portrait photography as newborns. But outside of that, it's still lighting. Yeah. And even with the families holding the baby, it's still posing and lighting. And so I decided to focus on those things to strengthen my photography. And sometimes I joke that I'm like a lighting ninja or a posing ninja, because I do tend to very actively light and pose. Like I'm very much in the space, you know, doing the thing. I'm not just stand here and click, click, click. And, you know, I want people to react and engage, and even helping people like engagement sessions, you know, people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so awkward. Like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I got you. Like, I call it natural posing, where it's like you get people to engage with each other, and then whatever happens, happens, right? So you start with that engagement, like literal engagement in an engagement session. And then if something fun happens, or like, hey, twirl her or dip her, or, you know, make him laugh, or whatever it is, those things then become the moments that, you know, evolve from that first moment. So but that's how I feel like I can do all of these things. And then I started to really think about like, yes, this photographer for life concept, right? I mean, if you follow any kind of chain of events, you know, you've got, sometimes things are a little bit more different now, but like, you know, wedding, and then maybe boudoir, then maybe baby, then maybe, you know, baby is like maternity, newborn. Then you have family, children, high school senior, college senior, engagement, wedding, you know, all over again. And I actually have been privileged to be able to do some photos from, so clients back when I lived in Georgia, when I really started my full-time business, who now have gotten married. They were high school seniors then, now they're getting married. Or ones like kiddos I've followed from mom having maternity photos. Now they're like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, you know, so that to me is really cool, being part of that journey.
Seriously. Yeah. Like you're growing up and with, you know, people, as they grow. And that's really cool. That's really sweet. So like, would you say that, I mean, well, I guess you did kind of say, so like lighting and posing and kind of getting people to engage is sort of like your secret to sort of mastering all of the, all the types of shoots.
I would say so. Yeah. Those three things really are the through line. Like one of the things that I think I learned later was also that business is super important, right? And like client communication, putting processes in place where those processes don't change no matter the client, no matter the situation, because those processes create consistency, and that consistency creates reliability, and that reliability can lead to amazing results. You know, when you start letting people, I think, tell you what to do when it comes to your job or your passion, I think that's when things can go a little south. And I really had to learn that the hard way. Like without those processes in place, without understanding how to have client conversations that can sometimes be difficult, that you end up maybe with some results that you're not happy with or that I wasn't happy with.
Right.
And you look back and you go, well, what did I miss? Like, how did that happen? And it often comes down to not setting expectations, not having processes in place, and not communicating those things accurately.
Totally.
So having to do all of that and really set those things in place so that I could make sure that happens with every session has helped greatly too.
Totally. Yeah. And definitely having processes and like setting up expectations is just so huge. I mean, I just have like 5 mental trains that are going in different directions just based off of what you said. But like expectations are super important for like communicating and making sure that everyone's kind of like on the same page and more or less happy with what comes out. And then, you know, I think photography is an art form, you know, and I've heard like in a more general sense, like the art really shines when the artist can kind of like follow their passions, right? Like if you were gonna, you know, if photography by Jacquelynn was dictated by some other person who told you what to do, it might not feel quite as authentic and genuine. And so it's so important to have that. And then just from a business standpoint, having processes is also so important, you know? It's not fun having a communication misalignment with a client at any point, but
definitely not.
But you know, that happens.
It does. It can. Yeah. And even no matter how many processes you put in place,
it can still happen.
Someone can still squeak through.
They'll always manage to find a way. You know, it's like water in a boat, you know, the leaks will be found.
They will. They will. I joke that my contract is really just a series of mistakes that happened to me that I have added to the contract to the point where it's like, why is this thing in here about no spray tan? Like, you know, it's because once somebody came to my studio and spray tanned themselves in the bathroom before the shoot. And, you know, guess who had to clean that up later. But yeah, like, it's just so funny because I sometimes look through my contract and I'm like, yep, I remember why that's there. I remember why that's there. Like all the things.
Yeah, I can totally resonate with that as well, you know, and it's like those mistakes are like learning moments, right?
Totally,
you know, and it just helps everything go smoother. You don't have to clean any more spray tan out of your bathrooms, right? So,
for sure.
So I want to shift gears a little bit because, you know, again, going through your sites, I saw that you were named one of the top 10 best boudoir photographers in Tucson by Wedding Rule. And that's really awesome.
It was cool.
So congratulations on that.
Yeah, it was very surprising. Like when they contacted me, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like I didn't even know I was up for it. So that's awesome.
Totally. And so like, so I guess I want to talk a little bit of like what that process was like. Like they just kind of emailed you or called you and were like,
they reached out to me and they let me know that I had been, you know, nominated and was one of the 10. And I mean, I was delighted and they showed me the posts that they had written about it and they'd done their research. And so it was really cool. Like I would say, maybe leave that part out because I'm not actually sure about the process.
Fair enough.
Like I really don't know like how they found me. So maybe let's just celebrate that they did.
Yeah.
Rather than like, it's not like the Tucson Best Of where there was voting and stuff, right? Like I'm really like, I was delighted that they sent me that email and I was like, oh wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for the...
Well, you know, and this may be an assumption, but like I can only imagine like you were probably nominated by, you know, the wonderful testimonials of your clients.
I would hope so. Like certainly I try to put that on there so that people can see that real people have real things to say about the photography, not just like me saying I'm awesome, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of these services that you offer, one of these boudoir services is called Real Women Photography. And you aim to empower women of all shapes and sizes and ages through boudoir sessions. I guess I'm curious, like what inspired you to offer services in this genre?
Yeah. And this is a little bit of a backstory too. So, when I first started photography, like really started focusing on photography as a career, I went to, I had moved to Dayton, Ohio, and I had joined some more photography clubs.
Yeah.
These were cool back then.
Yeah.
And I'd met some, I would call them older hobbyists who had been doing photography for a really, really long time, never for hire, always for fun.
Nice.
But really were artists and craftsmen, like at all the things that they did. So I learned so much about black and white photography and just like all sorts of things that, like, even at the time I'd never been in a studio, and there were some photographers there who just had home studios and they just shot photographs for fun, and they would have these like studio shoots. And so I got to experience studio lighting for the first time, like really cool stuff. Yeah. And one of those photographers was and still is, and he's in his almost 90s now. He has a very artistic approach to photographing women. Right. And his were more about teeny tiny woman, really big space. Yeah. Right. And so it was like these crazy dilapidated buildings, which there were a ton of in Dayton, Ohio. Right. And he would put these women in these beautiful like white robes and nightgowns and things in like these little corners of the building. And then it would be all about the architecture with like this beautiful woman in like a dance pose or something. Wow. And so he and I started to like talk about like photographing women and talk about like empowering women and that kind of thing, and how he saw it from his perspective. His was like much more, like I said, art in that focus. But I realized that there was something there for me that resonated with this idea of empowerment, right? Yeah. And at the time, I was still seeking that little bit of connection for like, how do I change people's lives? How do I make an impact on people now that I'm coming out of this public health space into the photography space? And one of the things that really, I think, resonated for me was this idea of helping women see themselves as beautiful. Yeah. And this was way before, like, I think the language and the vernacular was around that kind of empowerment. You know, It was more like I wanted to try to find ways for women to be their best selves. And maybe that me showing them how they looked on camera in that boudoir space would help them see a version of themselves that would help them feel more empowered. Right. And that would then somehow translate into higher self-esteem and more ways to connect to like their children or their world with that better self-esteem. And that all traces back to when I was in public health, when I was learning in my master's program. I did a lot of work in teen pregnancy prevention. Yeah. And one of the through lines of some of the work that I did was about how women, girls in that age group who are, you know, teen pregnancy, I guess, at risk for teen pregnancy, often self-esteem plays a huge part in making choices that would lead them to be pregnant, right? Like they think, or perhaps are taught, that sex is a way to, you know, feel empowered or feel, you know, a certain way. And so then that leads to pregnancy because maybe they don't know how to prevent it or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And that's a very, you know, watered down version of it. But I was looking for like, how can I help change that course in a way too, right? And so I was like, well, maybe by helping empower the moms and helping their self-esteem, they can then help teach their children some of that self-esteem, which the trickle-down effect. So huge, ask from boudoir photography, right? From boudoir photography to like preventing teenage pregnancy. Not really a good connector, but at the time I was like, how can I make this work? But I do think there are elements to that really are solid and true today. Yeah. I think that women are, people, but women, I would say maybe especially, are very hard on ourselves. Yeah. We're hard on our bodies. We look at ourselves in the mirror, many of us, and see only the flaws and not the things that are beautiful, even if we have people telling us otherwise, right? Sure. And even people who are, you know, beautiful on every level from the outside looking in, you know, we may see them as beautiful. They may not see themselves as beautiful. Yeah. Right. And that I don't think is a new story. Right. Yeah. So the boudoir, the real women, I wanted this brand to speak to women in all stages of life and in all stages of like perhaps that need to be empowered, need to feel like they're beautiful because something either terrible has happened. Perhaps they're going through a divorce or they're going through a loss, or I've worked with women with breast cancer who had, you know, mastectomies and want to capture the before and after. Like I photographed a woman who was kicked in the stomach by a horse while she was pregnant. Ouch. And like this whole trauma that happened after that, she needed like an opportunity to reclaim her body. Yeah. And a boudoir session was the way that she and her therapist actually had talked about, like, here's a way that you can do this. Yeah. So I've had women come to me that their therapists have recommended that they do a boudoir session, you know? So, and women, of course, there's other positive things, women celebrating banner birthdays, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s. I've worked with women in their 70s, no lie. So I think that there's this hope that I am reaching women who want to celebrate or want to reclaim something that will help them see themselves in a more positive light. Yeah. And so I really do focus on that when I'm working with women. Like I'm really it's another area where I've really honed in on the posing and the lighting to help women feel beautiful through photography, but also to see themselves when we see the pictures together, to let them know you are beautiful and there are some flaws, but that's okay. Yeah. Those are okay. Those are part of your story. Right. Those scars are part of your journey, so do we want to erase them or do we want to keep them, kind of thing. Yeah. So there's lots of things that I'm hopeful that women take home from these sessions. Totally. And that was really, and as someone who has suffered from, challenges with self-esteem, challenges with seeing myself as beautiful, being sort of a oversized woman, a plus-sized woman, I've never been that skinny template. So I didn't want to have that be the path I chose for boudoir. I wanted it to be for women who were plus-sized or were, women who struggled with something that they didn't love about their bodies and helping them kind of work through that by helping them see themselves as beautiful. So
totally. And that's a really great mission. And I can definitely hear what you're talking about in terms of your self-esteem kind of impacting decisions in a wider way, and I think a lot of us have inner critics that can be really brutal sometimes, know, and so being able to put people in a place where they can see the beauty in themselves is an awesome thing to do. I mean, that's really, I feel like that's profound, because I would say one of the best things you can do in your life is love yourself and respect yourself.
And it's one of the hardest things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Howdy, listener. This is Connor. Thank you so much for listening to our episode today. If you find these interviews enriching, one of the easiest ways you can help this show is to leave a rating and a review. If you go into your podcast player, for Apple Podcasts, if you scroll beneath all of your episodes, you'll find a spot where you can rate and review. If you just click that and add a review, that helps others find these impactful episodes and hear the valuable insights of the people who are the heartbeat of the Tucson community. So if you have a moment, please do that. It really helps the show. It really helps me out. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for your support. Toodaloo. So, I mean, beyond the lighting, beyond the posing, what are some other elements, what do you do to the space? Kind of, what other tips or tricks do you have that really help people get comfortable and get in that place where they can, let the mask fall off?
Sure. Yeah. And it can be a multi-step process for sure. Yeah. So it always starts with a phone conversation because I want them to hear that I am a person, that I have a voice and that, I'm not just some weird rando that, happens to have a boudoir website. Right. So I think connecting over the phone has really helped. Yeah. There are some women that prefer an in-person, pre-meet, which is totally fine. Yeah. In today's age, Zoom, it can do just as well, but I find for most women having a phone conversation to start really helps. And really asking them up front, what concerns do you have? What do you love about your body? What maybe don't you love as much about your body? And I phrase it a little differently. I kind of what are some of the things that you would like to emphasize? And what are some of the things you'd like to de-emphasize, right? Totally. Because I don't want to make it about love, hate, really. Yeah. I also do talk up front about verbal posing, right? A lot of women are I've never done this. I'm super shy. This is way outside my comfort zone. Totally. And so I talk about how I am there to guide them through all the poses that, they never have to wonder what to do with their hands, feet, arms, whatever. Right. And that through that process, if they're ever uncomfortable with anything, whether it's physically or emotionally, really, we can take a break. We can not do the pose. We can, take a step back. I joke with them that like, if it feels awkward, maybe still do it because awkward can actually look good on camera, believe it or not. But if it's like uncomfortable, like painful, of course, I don't want them to do it.
Totally.
And if it's really like a pose where they're like, ooh, that just doesn't feel like me, then also not something to do.
Totally.
But I would say most of it is just addressing up front that this is out of people's comfort zone. This is something that's meant, you know, to help them feel better about themselves, or really how I phrase it is feel empowered, right?
Yeah.
That while this is a gift perhaps for someone, like maybe you're gifting this to someone, I want this to be a gift for yourself first and foremost.
Right.
And many women walk away from it feeling that way for sure at the end.
Yeah.
It's often a gift for someone else that motivates them to come in the door.
Yeah.
But then when they leave, they realize it's really a gift for themselves as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also the space, I mean, the studio is in my home. I have a designated space that's always a studio. Yeah. That's primarily what I use the studio for. Okay. It's definitely a lower light environment. Like I use a lot of black in my backdrops, but I also have sort of a light and airy setup as well. But primarily starting with black, so it's a little darker in there. Yeah. The lighting that I use is just very subtle, like they don't see it right away, so it's not like a bright glaring spotlight or anything like that.
Right.
And also, like, they really, when they come in the door, I joke with them, I'm like, you're not going to come in the door and just take off your clothes. You know, you're going to come in the door, we're going to sit down, we're going to, you know, go through what you brought, and I do advise them ahead on what to bring, and we talk through clothing ideas and stuff. But once we get there, I find that very often women bring more than they will use. And so we usually piece through, and, you know, so it's a very low key. There's music playing, you know, it's just us like in the house. So even though the studio is part of the house that we shoot in, we have the whole house. They have a separate bathroom that they can use. So it's all very like geared towards helping women feel safe. And I think, you know, in a way, like even just vulnerable. I mean, a lot of it is helping women to be okay being vulnerable in that space and knowing that, you know, I will take care of them there. Yeah. And I've had women cry, like they've become overwhelmed, and we've had to take a pause and sit and talk and like have a drink, you know, like, but it's like, it's all about meeting the women where they're at. Yeah. And some women come in and they're like blazing and ready to go, and they're like, I got this. And then that's great. Then it's super easy. Yeah. So, but it's just, I think, about preparing women for, you know, what to expect, helping them when they get there feel okay being vulnerable. Right. Because ultimately they're taking their clothes off in front of me. Like, there's a vulnerability there that I think, you know, has to be earned. It can't just be like, jump in and do it.
Totally. So. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so that's just great. Emphasizing like that comfort, that safety, really allowing someone to be in the space where they can, I guess, bloom more or less.
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking about that.
It's something really special to me. So, and it is the thing I've been doing the longest in my career. So.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. You know, let's talk a little bit more about Jacquelynn. Yeah. So in doing my research, you know, I've read that you have a passion for travel, and you often incorporate that into your photography. How do your travel experiences influence your artistic vision?
It is an interesting question, because I think there has been some shift for me actually in the course of the time I've been doing photography. So I've been doing photography for about 18 years. And when I was a former version of my life, I was an Air Force spouse. And so I was married to an Air Force officer for 14 years. Yeah. And we moved every 3 years. Yeah. And in that moving, there was this rediscovery every time we moved of a new location and a new climate and a new environment. And so it was always super exciting for me to be like, oh my gosh, like, what is this new space going to bring? Like, what is this new environment going to bring? And really adapting to that and learning to love it. Yeah. And the travel was also a way to like, oh my gosh, like, I want to go here. Can I book a photo shoot while I'm there? Because I'm really excited about like getting this person in this space. Or often I would drive by things. I'm like, ooh, that would look really great with a high school senior in front of it. Or, oh, check out that church. I'd love to get a bride in a dress in front of that church, you know? Yeah. So I really do still see the world through the eyes of like, how much better would this look if I had a person in the photo, you know? But as I've gotten, I think, into a space where, I mean, I've now been in Tucson for almost 12 years. Yeah. I want I want to do a little more separation between my travel and my photography that I do for hire. When I am working, I want to work hard. And when I'm playing, I want to play hard.
Totally.
And so I'm learning to kind of not want to like do as much like, oh, when we go to Hawaii, can I book a session?
Yeah.
No, I'd rather just go to Hawaii and like
Totally.
enjoy my time in Hawaii. And you know what? If a session happens, that's great. But like, I'm not going to work hard to work on my vacations anymore.
Totally.
You know? But I love to travel for photography. So for people who are like, I'm getting married in Colorado, like I did a photo session. Well, really, I did a wedding in Colorado last summer and had 2 other clients in Colorado from previous who had moved there, and I ended up booking a senior session with one of them who happened to be one of my earliest clients from Georgia.
Wow.
And then booked a family session with them as well, and then booked a family / and boudoir session with another client.
Wow.
So like all these people that have like, you know, so if I'm going to a place for something that's related to work, then I will try to like circle my people, you know, like, all right, who else do I know here? Who wants a photo shoot?
Right.
Or people will just, you know, say, hey, can you come out? Like I have a family I worked with for many years here that moved to Florida. And I'm like, could I come out in September and do your family session for like the 7th year? I would love that, you know, and who else can you book for me while I'm there to make it kind of worth it?
Right.
So I will still do that for sure because I do love to travel and it's easy for me to travel. I don't have children. I just have pets and a husband. And so it's like super easy to travel, on a whim in some cases, you know, as long as I don't have other things I'm booked with.
Totally.
But I will say that there have been some bucket list items and still are.
Yeah.
Like one was the Eiffel Tower, and I did tick that box. I did an engagement / proposal at the Eiffel Tower probably like 6 or 7 years ago now.
Wow.
But it was just like, that was epic. Like there are just some places in the world that I'm like, I just really want to do a shoot here. Like, and the Eiffel Tower was one of them. So did get that on my bucket list. I don't know if I have any that are like that iconic, but there are some places that I'm like, ooh, that would be really cool. Like there are lots of mountain passes and beautiful, like epic scenery in, you know, Oregon and even some of like the Midwest, not Midwest, but like places I've seen that are like, oh, I want to go there, like Canada, like just things where I'm like, oh, I would love to get something there. But the Eiffel Tower was definitely like the epic.
Totally.
Box ticked. So.
Yeah, I mean, Paris is a very romantic location, and the Eiffel Tower is certainly iconic.
Yes.
You know, I'm just curious. Was there a time where maybe you went on a vacation and you meant to be vacationing, but then there was just this perfect spot and this perfect like culmination of events that ended up in like a photography shoot?
No, nothing like that has ever happened. I mean, Paris would probably be the closest because, I mean, I had done the work previously to like organize some things, but it wasn't like I was hired to go to Paris to do the thing. Okay. We were going to Paris and I was like, okay, who do I know? How can I get this? Like how? And I literally met this couple on like a couch surfing website. Wow. Like someone was like, hey, have you heard of couch surfers or whatever it was? Yeah. And so I just put out there, is anyone looking to hire a photographer for like engagement or proposal at the Eiffel Tower on these dates? And I got someone.
That's awesome.
You know, so that's the kind of work I had to put into it. So it was a little bit of like happenstance and good luck and a little bit of like already going. But but have never been to a place where suddenly like a photo shoot. And I'll tell you why. Yeah. Because if I don't know that I'm photographing, I'm not bringing my gear. And there's a lot of gear, like the lighting and the lenses and all that. Like I have this great travel camera that I travel with. It's very light and very low key, like 2 lenses and a camera body, you know? Yeah. So I could do a photo shoot with that, but probably not as well as with like all the gear and the lights and the whatever. So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. It seems like, you know, you just have this passion for like discovery and connection. Yeah. And that's really cool. Yeah. For sure. That's awesome. Sure.
Well, and whatever the wind throws me, I'm always happy to be like, all right, universe, what are you trying to teach me? Yeah. What are we trying to do next?
Seriously. And sometimes you just got to take that and run with it. I mean, that's how I ended up here. So the universe works in strange ways.
It really does. Yeah. It really does. It really does.
So again, we're going to shift gears a little bit here again. Beyond just your photography services, you also offer resources and insights for aspiring photographers. What motivated you to become an educator in this field?
Yeah, this was definitely one of my, I would say, biggest achievements. When I was a very young photographer in Dayton, Ohio, I decided at the time that I need to make a decision. Am I going to go full time? Am I not going to go full time? Right. And if so, what does that look like? Yeah. And there was this conference, still is. It's one of the biggest national conferences for photographers, and it's called WPPI, Wedding and Portrait Photographers International. Nice. And they host every year a conference in like February, March in Las Vegas. And it is a huge, like usually 5-6 day event, like lots of breakout sessions and conference, like these great like, events and shootouts and active like photography in these, they call them like photo walks, like all this really great stuff. Yeah. So when I first decided to decide whether I want to do photography or not, I was like, I'm going to this conference because I'd heard about it. I'd read about it, but I'd never gone. I'm like, this is going to be my decision maker. Right. If I leave here going, yes, this is what I want to do, then that's what I'm going to do. If I leave here with like, no, this is just way too much work, I'm not going to do it. So I went all in. I did they had these things they called plus classes where it was like 2-day all intensives with a particular photographer, and you could choose from like one of 8 and you had to pay like extra. Then they had all these other like different tracks you could prepay for. So I did it all. I was like, I'm doing it all. Nice. And I did it all. I was in Vegas for 8 days. Wow. And I would say in that conference, I learned probably things that built me into the photographer I am today and that I still use today. Wow. From the lighting, from the, there were 2 formative photographers who were formative for me at the time. And I took a class with them. It was the plus class that I was in. And I still use 50% of what I do. I use because I learned it there. So it's like amazing how like the best foundation can start you on the right track and keep you going. Seriously. So I really wanted to emulate that to some degree, right? So if I can take some basic things that are super foundational that can help photographers be better and teach them how to do that. Yeah. I want to be that person for them. I want to be that resource. Yeah. And so a couple years later, really the next year, I went back to the conference in Vegas, and just again, like universe, happenstance, God, like there was this editor of the WPPI magazine, Rangefinder. And I talked to him personally and said, how can I get an article in your magazine on boudoir photography? And he's like, send me the article. Nice. And so I went home and I wrote an article about real women. Yeah. And used the photography that I had at the time. I was literally like 2 years into photography, like really, really young. But from that point forward, I ended up teaching boudoir photography at that conference every year for 10 years. Until COVID, and then kind of things all sort of unraveled. They still have the conference, but there was a lot of leadership change and they were going kind of in a different direction. And I was like, I'm not sure if I really want to be here anymore. Right. I think I will go back again in a couple of years because it's an invaluable conference, but I had also gotten to a point where I felt like, okay, I feel like there's not a ton here that is brand new to me. Yeah. Because it's really geared for photographers who are starting out, a lot differently than for people who have been career photographers for, as long as I have. Right. So, but those 10 years, I was educating other photographers on boudoir photography. Yeah. And it wasn't just, it wasn't just how to take the photos, right? Yeah. It was all of the business stuff that went with it. Right. Because to me, that is usually the gap that most photographers need to fill. Yeah. It's not that they can't take great photos. It's not that they haven't invested in the lighting or the lenses or whatever. Yeah. It's that it doesn't matter how great the photos are. If you can't run a business, if you don't understand profit, if you don't understand ROI, if you don't understand any of those things, then you're really not going to be able to make a living. Yeah. Like you can do high volume, low cost photography and you're going to burn yourself out. Yep. If you don't know how to make that so that you can make it sustainable and profitable. Totally. And so I really focused on the business side of it when I was teaching the boudoir because I wanted people to understand, there's a foundation here that you have to build along with the portfolio, along with learning how to work with people. And I would say, there's definitely still a need for that. I don't think there are definitely classes out there. There are people who are talking about sales and marketing and all of those things, but it's not sexy and it's not exciting and it's not fun. Yeah. So like most photographers who get into this want to just take great photos and they want to be like out and about and like, oh my gosh, in nature and doing these things. And they're not really focused or caring about as much that business side of it. Yeah. And so, you know, there usually comes a time, it's a crossroads in most photographers' lives. Yeah. You know, do I want to make this a real thing and really focus on making a living? Or do I want to just do this for fun and for free and for, you know, hobby or for weekends or whatever? For sure. And I think that that is something that I want to help photographers see how they can do both. Like do something for fun, but also make a living at it because I've been doing it for 18 years, you know? So education is super important to me. I think it's definitely necessary to inspire young photographers to do more than just take great pictures. Right. So that was one of so for me, teaching at WPPI was a huge boon and really like kind of a, wow, I can't believe like I'm here, you know? Yeah. And now that I've done that, I see a future where I can put together some kind of platform to teach at a more global level. Yeah. I don't know when or where that will happen, but that is like a future thing I'm noodling. Like, how can I make boudoir education a platform that I can inspire and help with moving into the future? So
totally. No, that's awesome, Jacquelynn. You're so accomplished.
Oh,
seriously.
Gosh, thanks.
Yeah, of course. No, that's awesome too. I mean, it's so right. Like just in almost any sort of, you know, artistic practice, right? Like the artists want to make the art and it's so hard to make a living from that if you can't do the business aspect. Yep. And so that's the key. And it isn't sexy, but
it is not.
But business rarely is.
I know. It really, 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 really rarely is. But I think also learning to outsource your things that you're not an expert at is part of that journey and part of that, like, I've arrived, right? Like, I now know I shouldn't be the one doing my own XYZ. Somebody else who is better at it should, and I can pay that person to do that. So, you know, there are some of us that do hold tight to some things because I'm kind of a control person. Like, I want to control all my own pieces, but there are things I don't want to control. Like, I don't want to do my own taxes, and I don't want to do my own, you know, like right now, like, Instagram, I have like this planning app that I use to kind of cross post. So like anything I can automate, I want to automate so that I'm not the one pushing the buttons, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And pardon me. Yeah, that is absolutely a really important skill to have in business is like, knowing where you can outsource for sure. Because I mean, as a solopreneur, it takes so much time to do everything.
Sure does.
Yeah. And and I don't want to do my taxes either. So
I'm not even sure my accountant wants to do my taxes, but you know,
totally.
Good luck to her.
No, so it is definitely important to get those experts in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I caught on to, you know, you wanting to, you mentioning an aspiration to educate on a, you know, more global scale. Maybe alongside that, you know, what other aspirations or goals do you have for Photography by Jacquelynn?
Yeah, I think that there is, you know, as we all age, I think there is a future-minded goal, you know, that I want to retire comfortably and when I'm ready. Like, I don't think there's a retirement age for photography, right? But there is probably a point of transition to where you're choosing the jobs you're taking and you're retiring well and comfortably. And I do want to get to that point in my life, you know? Yeah. And I think that there are some things I want to do that are related to that. One of them is creating some kind of education platform that I can do that is not as, say, hard on your body as going out and doing the photos. Right. But the other thing in the short term, because I'm certainly not retirement ready yet, I would really like to get better and bigger into the elopement space. So I have found that, you know, weddings were definitely part of my foundation. I did a lot of wedding photography in my early years. I second shot for a lot of photographers, and I really, really enjoy weddings still. But I love elopements and micro weddings and smaller, intimate, even backyard. Like, the DIY, because in a lot of ways it embodies, I think, the best of a wedding, because it's usually the things that have less hoopla attached to them. And a little bit more like, no, we're here for love. And we really just want pictures of us, making this commitment and then being, beautiful after. Totally. And so that, to me, I want to especially embrace what we have here in Tucson, people who come here to elope from other places and really embrace the beauty of our city, and build that in a way where we do a little more, adventure type elopement stuff where we're like going to the mountains and going on a hike. And so that is something that I would like to really in the short term kind of shift my wedding business into a little bit more. It's certainly something I've started. I just haven't pushed it out there entirely into the elopement specialty. But
gotcha.
That is a place that I want to go probably next.
Yeah, that seems like a really fun space. Yeah.
It is.
Because you're totally right. In those situations, I had the fortune of officiating one of my friend's elopements. And yeah, those weddings are so much about the connection and the love too, and so there's definitely a sense of calm and togetherness and presence that, I can totally see, with all the bells and whistles, the hoopla, as you said. It can definitely be a little bit distracting. So.
It can. And I find that it definitely is a different mindset, for people who want to do it that way. It's much more about the most important things to them and not just the things that they should do because it's a wedding.
Totally. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So, I imagine right now there are some folks who are listening and they're interested in taking on your services. What might someone be experiencing right now that should indicate to them that they reach out to you?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a connection to what I started with, just this idea of when was the last time I had a photo with my family where I was in it? And I actually liked how I looked, right? Because that's the other thing, selfies, mom's going to be ugh, what was I thinking? What was I wearing? My hair is whatever. And I do find that is a lot of times, if mom doesn't like how she looks in the pictures, that's a deal breaker. And that speaks to women and the empowerment and wanting, them to feel like they are beautiful in their photos. Right. So if there's someone listening who's last time we had family photos, my child was 2 and now she's 12. Yeah. That's a great indicator that it's time to get a refreshed family picture.
Totally.
If people are in a business space and they're starting a new business or they are rebranding a business and they're gosh, my last headshots were 5 years ago and I have a totally different look now or a different vibe or whatever, that's a great reason. Anybody who's looking to change or they have a place of change in their business or transition, I think that's a good indicator. Also I say that really photography is about celebration. Yeah. So what are you celebrating coming up? Is it a wedding? Is it an engagement? Is it a, graduation from high school? What are those things? Having a baby? I get to be part of people's finest moments, most joy-filled moments. So what is on the horizon for you that you're my gosh, I should document that? Not just with my phone, I should document this in a way where I'm fully present in that photo and I can look back on it and say, I was there.
Nice. And for those folks who are listening and they're really resonating right now, where can they go to hear more of your insights, see more of your work, or even get in contact with you?
Yeah, my website and my Instagram are probably the fastest way. I mean, my phone number and email are on every platform that I'm part of because I never want to make it hard for people to reach out to me directly. Yeah. So there are contact forms on my website, which is photographybyjacquelynn.com. But there's also from my Instagram, you can direct message me. My phone number is present on all of those things. I always welcome text messages. That's a great way to start the connection. But really and truly, I think, going and looking at my work and making sure it resonates with you is a great place to start because my style is still a style. I consider it to be very true to life, a little bit maybe bright and airy, but certainly not, anything where I would want anybody to walk in and be like, gosh, that's not what I was expecting. Like, for sure, check me out on my website first. Check out my Instagram, Photography by Jacquelynn first, because those are ways that you're going to be able to see like kind of the work that I do.
Totally. And folks, we'll have the links for Jacquelynn in the episode notes. So just go ahead and check that out and get in contact with Jacquelynn. So Jacquelynn, again, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah.
We've gone through almost all the questions. We're running out of time here, but I do have one last question for you.
Yes, lay it on me.
It's the question I ask everybody who comes through these doors. What is one thing out of the many that you love about Tucson?
Oh my gosh. And that I thought was a great question when you kind of prepped that. I literally, like, for me, it's the scenery. Yeah. Like, it's the epic, right?
Yeah.
When I had a choice of where to live, and I did, when my ex-husband and I parted ways, I didn't have to stay in Tucson. That was where we had last been assigned together. But I was like, where do I go? I'm from Pennsylvania. I lived in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Ohio. I'm like, where do I go? And I'm like, I want to stay right here.
Nice.
Because there's something about this place that I think is magical. And particularly from a photographic standpoint, the backdrops, like, where else do you get the saguaro cactus? You really don't. Like, this is it. Like, the Sonoran Desert is it,
Totally.
And the mountains and the sunsets. And I, like you, run on solar power, so anywhere where I don't have to check the weather to see if the sun's going to shine is a good landing place for me. So
totally. Yeah, we live in a beautiful place.
We do.
I seriously, I love Tucson so much. Any direction you look, there's a mountain.
I know.
And
it's
awesome.
I love walking out of the Target on Old Spanish and being like, wow, there's a mountain right there.
Yeah.
There it is. Like, right there.
Totally. You're like, wow, how did this grocery store get such good real estate? And it's like, it's just a beautiful spot.
It really is.
Absolutely.
It really is. Like, right now I have a hummingbird who's built a nest in my rose bush next to my porch. And like, I'm just loving like just stuff like that, you know, like, it's
totally
cool. It's cool to live here.
I get that. Yeah. just making room for, this is a bit of a tangent, but you mentioned hummingbirds and I love them. And we definitely we plant all sorts of things that help bring pollinators too. And so it just touches my heart whenever I see bees or hummingbirds coming in and drinking up the nectar of those plants. So it's so nice.
Same. Yeah. You'll have to come by to the studio and see our hummingbird nest.
I'll have to. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Jacquelynn, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Really great talking to you and getting to know more about you, your processes, how you got into Photography by Jacquelynn, and to hear your extensive expertise. Yeah. So, folks, again, if you want to talk to Jacquelynn or get photos by Photography by Jacquelynn, check out those episode notes and the links will be right there for you. And I guess with that, toodaloo.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Of course. Bye, y'all. And that's a wrap for another episode of T-Lokes, your go-to podcast for uncovering the untold stories of Tucson's local businesses and nonprofits. A big thank you to our incredible listeners for joining us on this journey of connection and discovery. I want to give a huge thank you to Jacquelynn Buck from Photography by Jacquelynn for coming on the show today, telling us the story of how she got into photography, why it's so important to her, how she seeks to empower women, and how she can help capture your best moments on camera. Show them some love and check out their links in the episode notes. A big thank you to Louis Sanders from Sound Monk Studios for composing the awesome T-Lokes theme music. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected with Tucson's vibrant business scene, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is invaluable, and it helps us continue bringing you engaging conversations. As we wrap up, remember that T-Lokes isn't just a podcast, it's a community. Let's keep the conversation going on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or our Discord channel and share your thoughts, suggestions, or even recommend a local business or nonprofit you'd like to see featured on the show. Thank you once again for being a part of the T-Lokes community. Until next time, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep supporting the heartbeat of Tucson. Toodaloo.